Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and enjoy the following 12 true stories from real people. Number 1. Cops are his father in profession. Laws. He was called to a suicide by hanging incident years ago. The body had lain there for some time before I discovered it. Because his spine snapped and his neck hung down many feet from the noose, it appears that the dead had done quite an amount of damage to his neck vertebrae. A photo of giraffe neck was taken by the responding officers, who then circulated it around their colleagues. Even though she was only 12, my wife was exposed to the images, and as a result, she's turned out to be an excellent match for a person like me. Number 2. My lecturer is to blame, not me. At the tender age of 15, this youngster was playing with a loaded gun and shot himself in the face, accidentally. He then smeared blood on the wall in an attempt to scrawl the words "help me." That's terrible. To prepare for class, I showed the students images of the actual incident. Wow, that was a lot of work. This is the most popular comment of all time, and it's not even mine. For those who have questions, the case's details were never made public, including where it happened, name, or circumstances surrounding it. We heard about a lot of interesting examples, but we never understood what happened to them because my professor didn't know the final outcome in a lot of them. No CS for me, as I ended up working in an FS lab. Number 3. Gunshot wounds with each hand, one at the entrance, one at the exit, self-inflicted. Neighbors say they've seen 2 expended round casings and 2 gunshots. The ceiling, walls, furniture, and windows are entirely free of any signs of gunshots. For an hour, I and 2 police officers scoured the area for bullets, but none were found. I'm at a loss for words. Edit. Okay, sleuths, take a deep breath and relax. It was a textbook suicide, complete with a suicide note that had been signed by the victim. The dead had 2 guns, one in each hand, and both were discharged. Wounded victims could not get away into the night because there were no open windows or doors nearby. There was no movement. Even though there was no murder and no evidence of gunshots, I'm withholding information about the deceased's identity so that you can figure it out for yourselves. It's been a long time since we've had this conversation. Only a few inches separate an exit wound from an entry wound, yet he wasn't moving at all. My email is a shrine to long-forgotten saints who shed untold tears. Number 4. In college, I majored in anthropology with an emphasis on forensic anthropology, thus I'm not technically qualified to answer any forensic questions. The Forensic Science Quarterly was a regular source of information for me. Here are a few that come to mind. In a 6-story dorm, a kid was discovered on top of an elevator. As ridiculous as it sounds, he was elevator surfing. He'd gotten his head tangled up in the wires a few of times when it got trapped in the way. He was not immediately killed by this incident. As a result of asphyxiation, he died. Thus, his time to reflect on what happened before passing out ranged from a few seconds to a few minutes. An additional one was a little more of a conundrum. A body was discovered in a truck in a national park without a head. No further remains of the deceased were found nearby. The truck had been started, but the petrol tank was empty. The wound was nearly like a guillotine cut, with no sawing. The investigators were baffled at first, but they soon discovered a receipt in his pocket for 50 feet of nylon rope, solving their mystery. A noose was found attached to one end of the rope once they broadened their inquiry. Further exploration of this location uncovered a head after some time of searching. It's an unusual manner of ending one's life. The mystery has now been solved. There was an officer engaged in this event, and he shared it with me directly. A 50-year-old black lady has been found dead in a garage, according to the police. A 35-year-old Caucasian male was found to be the culprit after an investigation. Watching porn in his garage while strangling himself with the garage door opener was quite the experience for this guy. The remote's battery died, and so did his. .30-06 and A.308 were used by a man who wanted to take his own life, and I recall that case vividly. Those are 2 extremely potent calibers for the benefit of the non-gun community. Overkill in the extreme. In any case, this dude manages to tuck 2 weapons under his chin while laying in bed and simultaneously discharge them. This is going to obliterate his skull. I mean, there was only a stump left. That isn't the reason why the case has stayed with me. That's what occurred next. The skull was reconstructed by local forensic agencies as an experiment. There are no missing pieces, save for the orbital sockets that dissolved. Even with the bug-eyed appearance, the final product closely resembled the victim. What happened before and after that is something I won't soon forget. Number 5. Forensic scientist buddy of mine worked only on burglary cases. I'm notorious for coming up with dreary stories to share with strangers. However, her only excellent story is that she examined a pair of gloves found at the crime site and discovered that they contained something solid. To get it out, she lifted the gloves, and a thumb fell out, ripped at the first joint. While his accomplice crawled under the safe, this thief held up the safe, dropped the safe on his hands, and ripped them out before fleeing. The man was obviously apprehended by the police. Number 6. Despite the fact that I'm not a forensic scientist, a true story is nevertheless a nice one. An officer I used to know told me about the suicide of this young man. As soon as the kid's parents had departed for the day, the kid made a snap decision. Having snatched up his father's shotgun, he sank on the couch. He pulled the trigger with the shotgun in his mouth. The entire chamber and ceiling were coated in blood, brain matter, and human teeth. Back of his head had been blasted open by the blow. He slid down the barrel because he had the rifle in his mouth. The parents returned home to find their son sitting on the couch with a shotgun in his mouth protruding from the back of his head. Number 7. If you've ever been to a pathologist's lecture, you may have heard him ask the audience what household object someone had managed to kill himself with. Later, he revealed that someone had accidentally murdered themselves while cleaning their ears with matchsticks. Passed asleep on the couch with his own blood streaming out of his veins after puncturing a blood vessel and painting a wall with his own. Number 8. By placing the muzzle beneath the chin, the man, who is about 40 years old, shoots his wife and children dead with a military rifle with a muzzle energy of about 3,000 joules. This path begins with a trail of blood that leads to a bathroom, a mirror, and then to an ammo box. A person was found dead on a bridge with a gunshot wound to the heart, but there was no weapon, bullet, or cartridge case to be recovered with the body. Finally, we had enough evidence to conclude that the man had committed suicide. Although we don't know how he managed to float the firearm. The bottom of the river was searched, and nothing was found except the tools of the bridge builders. Edit 1. I've noticed that many people are inspired by the second example, in which the weapon is made to vanish. Please rest assured that a wide range of scenarios were considered and addressed during the investigation. But the difficulty is, and this is where fact and fiction diverge, we must present facts backed up by proof. It's very possible that the pistol was stolen, but until we have concrete proof to support any of these theories, we can only go on supposition and assumption. Number 9. A friend of mine is a psychotherapist who used to work as a crime scene photographer in his former career. She went to a garage where a person had committed suicide. When this man chose to terminate his life, he wanted to go with the automobile, so he shut the garage door and turned on the engine before he left. To make matters worse, he'd taken a slew of painkillers and tranquilizers. As soon as I arrived, EMTs and other specialists were already searching for clues and other information about my friend's death. He was the VP of a fairly large chain of local businesses, so there was an insurance settlement to consider. Suddenly, the man who had been pronounced dead hours earlier started to shake fiercely while my friend was taking photos of the event. She kept shooting pictures because she feared it was a death rattle. EMTs were brought back in after the man gradually sat up and nodded, and they were able to stabilize him and save his life. He was pronounced dead at the scene because the automobile had run out of gas at the time he exited. He couldn't move or speak, but he had made it. Number 10. Here's a forensic scientist who gets called out to crime scenes from time to time to help with evidence collection. There was a father who shot his adult son and put the body in a deep freeze that he kept in his bedroom. Because I'd never been so close to a deceased person, aside from funerals, I volunteered to assist the coroner remove the body from the freezer as soon as he asked for it, as I was fascinated about the process. There were still a lot of frozen biscuits sticking to his body when I helped the coroner remove the body from the freezer. It was strange and amusing at the same time that I had to remove them from his body. Number 11. I'm not a forensic scientist, but my mother was friends with a woman whose son killed himself in a horrific manner. A shotgun from the gun cabinet was taken to his room, where it was rigged to go off when the bedroom door was opened using string and pulleys. In the chair, he sat for what seemed like an eternity. Mom rushes to check on her son as soon as she arrives home from work. That woman was in need of a lot of help. I can't even fathom the sense of shame. Moreover, it was a shame that the boy had to rely on one of his parents to perform the dirty work for him. Number 12. The former coroner's acquaintance works at the hospital, and one day he says to come down and take a look. The coroner explained that the woman's death was caused by a shotgun blast, but it wasn't fire but bird shot from an estimated 50 feet away, and he instructed my mate to look for the pellet holes, so he did and found 3. When the coroner said good on you, well done, my mate looked around for a long time and eventually gave up, so the coroner told him to look at the back of his hand. He did so, and found the 4th and final pellet hole in her abdomen, which killed her because it entered her liver, per the coroner's instructions. Her middle finger had the final shotgun wound. She had been giving the individual who shot her the middle finger,